Welcome. Excuse me. Welcome. I believe we are live. So happy new year. It's 2026. Welcome everyone. 2025. I did do a year in review video yesterday. And so if you want to know I'll go into my thoughts again, but if you want to know what I think of Bitcoin for 2025, you can watch that video. Was it a flop? I don't think so. And in this video today, I'm going to go through in a lot more detail what I think is likely to happen this year, especially from a cycle perspective. Because right now there's a lot of debate. Are we still in the bull cycle, the bull phase of the cycle, or have we actually entered the bear phase? The truth is no one knows for sure. It's all hindsight, but we can only speculate. And I like to use data. So one of the charts that I want to show is this one here. This is my long-term chart. So I want to go over this in a lot more detail. I spent quite a long time putting this together. It just tracks all the different cycles. And I also want to look at recent price action. And this is, I've got to say, it's pretty bullish. And so my initial thoughts were, my thoughts for a long time is that we're probably going to bounce off of this trend line and come down here, but we've actually punched through. So we're going to cover a lot today. And if you're new to the channel, feel free to subscribe. I make these video updates pretty much every day. And that's what I'm actually committed to this year. Every day this year, I'm going to make one video update, price update on the most recent Bitcoin price action. And that could be a short, it could be a slightly longer form video that I make. So yeah, I kind of know what I'm talking about. I've been in Bitcoin since 2015. Been making these video updates since 2022, and most people have probably never heard of me because I got banned. I had a decent account on TikTok, and then I was getting good traction, and then they just deleted my account. And then I kind of lost interest. But now I've re-emerged from the shadows. And so, well, not the shadows, from the sidelines. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Let me start sharing my screen. And first, let's look at the more recent price action. So as you can see, I've been tracking this trend line for a long time, and we have finally broken through. And it's taken a long time. Like the start of it really was the most recent high. And how long has it taken? 87 days, so nearly 3 months to break through. And so what we need to do, we need to hope it stays above this line, because this could just be a fake out. It could spike up, kind of like what happened here. When I was tracking this long-term trend line, and it kept on breaking through, but coming back down again. Broke through a number of times. And that's a solid long-term trend line. It goes back to 2022. So it starts over here. So that was a valid trend line. And it tried to break it, but it didn't. And so I know this trend line isn't as long, but it's a very important one. And I'll quickly go back in time and show you why it's important. Because when you see these resistance trend lines, the reason why they're important is because it needs to break in order for it to get to the next level. Like, for example, here in the 2017 run, we had this long-term trend line. And this lasted a long time. This lasted, a good couple of years until it finally broke through. And then look what happened after that. The price went a bit crazy. And then we also had another one about a year or so after that. We had this resistance level here, and then finally it broke through, retested, and went crazy. And then even in more recent times, in the last run, we had this kind of trend line here. And I've just drew these roughly, they're not exact. But yeah, we had to break it properly before we went to the next level. And in the last bear market, it was this one here. And that one was a really important one because that was from the all-time high in 2021, and then it finally broke through just over a year and a half later, under a year and a half later, 2023. And you can see it broke through, kind of retested it, but then it retested it properly here, and then it took off. But if you notice, the actual uptrend started back then. So we can break out of uptrends and still be in resistance. Like right now, we're arguably in an uptrend. Let me open up a cleaner chart just to make this a bit easier to see. Which chart should I use? I have a few. Yeah, let's look at this one here. And so, we've got this resistance trend line. This one's drawn slightly differently. So I'm just going to make it a bit more accurate so it actually reflects what we're seeing. Let me go on to the daily actually. All right. This one's, see, you'll find this with these charts. You'll have similar kind of trend lines, but they look slightly different depending on the chart and the timing. I'm struggling to see why this one's a little bit different, because it is the index chart and daily. They're both on the log. Yeah, that's a little bit strange. I don't know why this is. Actually, no, it's kind of the same. But anyway, let's go back to this. What I wanted to actually just draw was, although we haven't broken this, we've kind of broken this resistance level. This could be the start of the uptrend, like that. But as a trader, as an investor, you really want confirmation. So you want confirmation that this is broken before really jumping in, because it's hard to catch the lows and be like, yes, this is the low here. And so I'm carefully tracking this, and I'm going to add this trend line here. And then, that'll be the ideal scenario. It comes through here and it just bounces along this trend line, and bang, all of a sudden we're back in an uptrend. So that's what I'm keeping an eye on. I am cautious. I'm not flipping bullish yet. We need data. We need a bit more. We need time, basically. But what's really cool is, if you look at some of the other charts, the total market cap chart, same situation. But this has broken through properly now. And so that is a really, really good sign. So again, we could consider this to be in an uptrend, but it's not 100% confirmed yet. We need more data. And if we look at the other total charts, total 2, for example, they're all showing the same thing. And what I want to do is I just want to tidy these charts up just to make them a bit more exact. And so this could have been the start of the uptrend here. And then total 3. Oh, this is the flop of 2025. See, this is broken through true too. And so this is very positive. And so again, I'm not flipping bullish yet, but I'm almost there. So this is another chart I keep going on about, stable coin dominance chart. And if this continues to trend down, then the Bitcoin price is going to go up. So I'm keeping a close eye on this chart as well. And so, yeah, we really want this to fall down again. And yeah, if we draw some resistance levels here, yeah, this is a good spot for it to retrace. So yeah, let's see. We're just going to have to wait and see. And in the meantime, alts are, kind of doing something, but a lot of them are still in a downtrend. They haven't broken their resistance levels. I'm just going to flick through some of the main ones. And by the way, if you've got any charts that you want me to look at in the comments, just let me know and I can go over them. So this is Doge. Again, another one of those coins that didn't really do much yet. That's the key thing. And you could say that this has definitely broken through one level of resistance. But zooming out, a lot of these charts just look so bad still. What a drop from here. November 2024. So Ethereum. Let's look at this on this chart here. Where is Ethereum? Again, this is broken through. So this is a good sign. So this did not happen. And yeah, we are on an uptrend. But we just need Bitcoin to keep on going. And so ETH is looking good too. Some alts, I noticed alts like Render have done reasonably well. Well, when I say reasonably, this, just from a few months ago, it's down 75%. Tau has punched through this level of resistance, so that is a good thing as well. We hit my target level here. We haven't gone this low. This really depends if Bitcoin does continue to fall. And it might do still. So I'm not getting too excited yet, but this is pretty good. Now this is strange. The whole market's performing really well, but Zcash, which is probably one of the best performers this cycle, is going down, which is strange. Yeah, I'd even say this is probably a decent buying opportunity because this is in a good uptrend as well. Alright, let's have a look at some of the macro coins, and then I want to go over this chart. So the US dollar, that continues to trend down. That's good. That's what we want to see. Reverse repurchase agreements. This is trending up. So this is kind of scary. A lot of people don't know what this chart is. But this is, I do talk about this a lot, and I've been talking about it for years, and there's not many people I know talk about it, although there are more and more people talking about it. This is basically money that the big banks and institutions have, and they, instead of leaving it in their accounts, making nothing, they give it back to the Federal Reserve for a very low interest rate. Now, I don't know what that interest rate is. I've never really looked into it. But you got to think of why are they doing that? Why don't they just put it into stocks or gold or whatever? Surely they'll make more money. But, these guys know what's going on. They're very well connected, and they know, look, if they're putting money here, that means that the markets are uncertain. It's too risky, so it's not worth it. So for them, they would rather make just maybe 0.5%, whatever it is they get, rather than trying to risk making a few percent on the S&P 500, for example. Excuse me. And so, yeah, I'm very cautious about this, because if this starts if it breaks this 500 million level, even this trillion level, that's when I'll be, all right, it's probably time to cash out and start scaling out of the markets, all the markets. So yeah, we definitely need to keep an eye on that. All right, the S&P 500, this finished on a low on Wednesday. And yeah, yesterday was a day off. And yeah, it's not a great candle so far. But we're still in an uptrend. So I'm going to do what I normally do, just connect that. So yeah, we want to hope to see that this holds. And there's definitely some kind of compression there. Dow Jones, they're all going to look the same. The Russell, we really want this to bounce from this level. UK 100, all-time highs. Don't know why. Maybe it's because all of the censorship that they do. That's a joke. Yeah, that's been a really good run in there. Alright, gold. Gold it's come back under this trend line. This is a trend line that I've been tracking for a little while, and it goes back to 87. And a couple of weeks ago, I was looking at it, and we had gone above this trend line, and that was interesting. But now we've actually crept back under. So yeah, we haven't broken it yet. So once it does break this, then it's price discovery. It's like, well, who knows where it's going to go from here. Silver is on a good run still. I want to do a little bit of analysis on this. I did briefly look at it last time, but Yeah, where could this go from here? Because it has broken all these levels. This long-term resistance. See, this is a good example of resistance. So when I talk about Bitcoin and why, I keep going on about that resistance level, it's like, look at silver. It was in this resistance level for like 12, 13 years. And then when it finally broke through, it tripled. Or more than tripled in price. So this is, why it's important to have an eye on resistance levels, like even that level there. So this stuff isn't made up. I know some people joke and call it, call trading analysis astrology for men, and it probably is, but there's definitely a place for it. But I'm going to go into the monthly because there's so much data here. It's difficult to really draw any proper lines, and because it's on such a run, it's hard to do any kind of meaningful analysis on this. It really is just a case of drawing some lines and seeing where they connect. Yeah, see, that would be a logical level. And I think I've said for a while now that $99 mark is probably where I see silver topping out for now. Because it will come back down again. How far, how low, I don't know. But no one knows for sure. And platinum has just been killing it too. And all I'm going to do in this one is just copy and paste that line because there's some kind of channel there. Alright, copper. Let me zoom back into the daily. But if there's any charts you want me to look at, you can just drop them in the comments, and as long as it's on TradingView, I'm happy to have a look at them. Alright. Yeah, USO doesn't look good either. It is a bit conflicting from a macro perspective because all these stock charts are doing really well, but yeah, some of the charts tell a different story, and that's why it's useful to understand trading analysis so you can see through the noise. Like for me, everything looks good, but this is the most concerning chart. If this continues to go up, then there's probably some kind of crash incoming. And no one knows. No one knows. Right, so that is my analysis at the moment. See, we haven't quite broken this trend line yet. And if we go into the 4 hour, we're just about on it. And so I'm hoping it breaks through and it stays above this. Okay. It breaks through. Right, so now what I want to do is I want to spend some time going through this chart here. Now, I spent hours putting this together. And yeah, you can say it looks pretty, but that's not the point. It's meant to really just illustrate the different cycles of a market. Because whether you like it or not, there are cycles in every market. The S&P 500, Bitcoin, silver, gold, nothing just goes up forever. It does over time, but then also nothing just, it's not like you have a bear run forever either. So I'm going to delete these and we'll look at these all together now. And then we can see. Alright, before I do that, I want to quickly bring you back to one of my other charts. Where is it? I might have a problem finding it. Okay, this chart here. Now, years ago, 2022, I drew this. And it played out very, very well. I drew this when the price was here. And I was asked on a live stream, look, what do I think is going to happen? And I said, look, given previous cycles, I saw a double top here, potentially a double bottom here. I saw the price doing something like that. And I gave this date, October the 6th, 2025, as the top. And you can see what transpired. I was very accurate. It didn't go down as low as I thought it was going to be. And it also didn't go as high as I thought it was going to go. but I got the date exact, October 6th, 2025. And I was right. So I can honestly say that I predicted the exact date of the Bitcoin top for 2025 in 2022. And what I want to do here is I want to answer the question, are we still in a bull run, or are we in the bear market? And have we been in a bear market for the last few weeks, few months? And we just haven't admitted it yet, because really you don't know at the time. You really know in hindsight, because even back here, you don't know if that was the top, you don't know if that was the top. It's only a few months after the top we realized it was the top. And so what I've basically done here is I've mapped all the cycles from the halving date. So the first halving date is 2012, November 8th. And I've just assumed that's when the bull market, starts. You could argue it started earlier or later, but I just used the halving as a more of a just to draw a line in the sand. I think that's a good way to put it. And so if you look at this, we had a crazy run. In hindsight, it's almost laughable. Bitcoin went from like $10 to $1,200. And so what I've mapped out here is I've mapped the start from the halving to the top, and that's 372 days. And the increase was just over 10,000%. And the top was on the 5th of December. And the actual top was $1,240. And then after that, that's where we entered the bear market. And the bear market lasted 405 days. And what I've done here is I've just connected the top to the low. And yeah, you could say that was the low, but for me, that's a different phase of the cycle. And so the bear market lasted 405 days and the price dropped just over 86%. And then after that, before the next bull market, we have the accumulation phase, and then we have the transition phase. And so this is where you ideally want to be reaccumulating Bitcoin. And then this is where you just hold, and then the market just takes off again. And then the cycle repeats. You have the bull run. This one lasted 526 days, 3,000% increase. And then we had the top, 17th of December, which is pretty much like 4 years later, just over. And so that's why people talk about the 4-year cycle. But what this chart will demonstrate is that it's not exactly 4 years. It's more event-driven, because even the halving, it's not exactly 4 years apart. It's based on block size. So even the next halving, we can estimate when it's going to be, but we don't know for sure. We can't say it's this date and that's when it is. It's going to be there or thereabouts. And so, yeah, that bull run lasted 526 days. And then I've gone from the top to the bottom, and that was 364 days, which is very similar to the previous bear market. The bull run was different. That was 372 days. That's 526. And then we come back into the accumulation phase. And yeah, we had a very good run during this accumulation phase, a good 300%, but that's still not the bull market. And, you probably be like, well, that is a bull market because the price went crazy, but did it go crazy? Not really, not in Bitcoin terms. So you have your accumulation phase and then your transition phase. And if you notice, this is a very similar time period, 284 days, 228 days compared to 293 and 248. And then the next halving, and now we're in another bull market. Now, a bull market doesn't necessarily mean the price pumps, because it took a while for it to get going. Over here it took a good, how long was that? 5-6 months, and then it started to go. And then, we had two tops here, and then we entered the bear market. Again, bull run was kind of similar, 548 days compared to 526. Bear market, 376 to 364. Accumulation phase and transition phase slightly longer, but this is because the distance between the halving was slightly longer too. It was just over 4 years. And so, again, you had the bull run, bear market, accumulation phase, transition phase. Now, the question now is, and we're not going to know the real answer until probably a good few months from now, are we still in the bull market? Or have we actually entered the bear market? And that's what we've been in all this time. Well, the last few months. Now, again, I'm speculating that we are still in the bull run. And my reasoning for that is because this only lasted 422 days and we only went up 109%. Now, if we're still in the bull run, then when are we going to top? When, how much further, how much more of a run do we have? And this is where you kind of need to guess. You look at past estimates, you got 372 days, 526, 548. And let me get my calculator and I'll get the average there. So 372 plus 526 plus 548. So if we just add those up divided by 3, then that means it's 482 days. And so that would mean, let me just make sure I'm doing this exact. That would bring us down to here, which means we've already, that's gone. So that means we are officially in the bear market and you would have had a chance to make a new all-time high. It didn't work out. I don't think that's the case. I think, and again, I'm just guessing here. I'm guessing the bull run's going to be slightly longer than previous times. And I'm just going to go with around about 580 days. So that takes us to about here. And again, this is a complete guess, but you can see that I'm basing it on some kind of reasoning. I'm not just, I haven't just made this up. I haven't come up with it from nothing. So that for me would mean that this is going to continue to run about this period here. And that's when the bear market's going to start. Now, this is just my theory. And then the question is, all right, so we could potentially still have another Bitcoin all-time high. And that means it needs to happen within the next 2 months, which is very possible. Very possible. And so if I'm right, and I've been right before, so there's a decent chance that I could be right again, what is Bitcoin going to do then? If it does go hit another all-time high, how high will it go? Again, no one knows. We can only speculate. And so for me, using my previous support and resistance charts, like over here, I'm looking at this level here as some kind of boundary. And I'm going to show you on a couple of charts. I'm going to show you on the analog chart as well. But, this is just connecting the more recent tops. And so if we have an all-time high at the beginning of March, and then that's round about 135k. And I would say that's a conservative figure, because if we look at my other chart that I was showing you earlier, this is my version of the rainbow chart. And I've just drawn curved lines, trend lines, just connecting, just drawing my line of best fit. So if this chart plays out, and then we top out at the beginning of March, then we're looking at about 180k. Now, obviously I want the 180k, but what's realistic? They're both realistic. 180k for Bitcoin, it will happen at some stage, whether this cycle or the next. And the reality is no one knows for sure. And this is why we need to, really just zoom out. I've got another chart here that I want to show you guys. It's the analog chart. Sorry, it's the linear chart. Let me find it, because this chart here, the one I want to show you, it paints a slightly different picture. All right, I can't find it, so what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to draw it on here. So this is the, this is Bitcoin, and let me hide these. I don't want to delete them. Actually, no, if I draw this, it's all going to appear again. Okay, let me just delete these because I don't really need these. So now this actually worked. Just using the analog chart, a linear, and just connecting the top in 2017. Just drawing a line like this. Like, look how well this worked. And I know traders who actually use this. It's so basic, but it was pretty much perfect. And so this is trading analysis at its best. And if this plays out, then we're looking at 130k. So I know that's a range there, but really Bitcoin could go as high as 180k, which would be around about here. Yeah, 183k. Or it could only hit 134, 130k. So they are my targets if Bitcoin does break through and launch off from here. And for me, that is a big if, because you see this trend line here. Now this is a trend line that broke that, where I didn't lose confidence, but I'm like, okay, it's kind of over for now. We're in a downtrend. And the more local trend lines I'm tracking are the support and resistance levels are over here. So this kind of level. So this area here is where I really want Bitcoin to bounce from. So my hope is that Bitcoin, if it does have a bit of a crash, bit of a tumble, that's okay. It has a tumble over the next few weeks, and then it just goes straight up. That is what I really want to see. But if Bitcoin does break this level, that's when I'll have to call it and say, look, this is unfortunately a confirmed bear trend, and who knows how long it's going to last for. And so they're the two possibilities for now. Either we already are in a bear trend, or this bull market continues for another couple of months, makes another all-time high, and before entering the bear market. So they are my thoughts. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I can always answer them in another video. But we just got to take it step by step. Even now, price action is a little bit frustrating because zooming in, it keeps going up and down. Excuse me, let's go into the hourly chart, see what that's doing. So yeah, this isn't a bad looking candle. This is a nice low test candle. So yeah, I really want to see Bitcoin pump out of this and yeah, break out of this downtrend. So I think I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for watching. I hope it made sense. I know I was just rambling, but I like doing these live streams because I get to just talk unfiltered and let you guys know what I think is happening in real time. And so I want to continue these. I want to continue to go live every Friday. I'm not sure about the time. I'm not sure if 3 p.m. UK time is good for everyone. I'm open to change the time. If you want to make any suggestions, feel free. And so, yeah, I'm going to continue to make my daily video updates. And if there's any charts you want me to look at, you can let me know in the comments. Appreciate everyone that jumped on live. Feel free to like, subscribe, share down below. And yeah, I'll see you all in tomorrow's video update. Thanks, people. Bye-bye.